Hey, everybody. So, today I want to kind of quickly, hopefully, go over how to write an introductory paragraph. So, we already talked about thesis statements, and by this point, we've already practiced some thesis statements. So, I'm going to proceed with the knowledge that you already know how to do some thesis statements because that's going to be important for your introductions. So, here we go. So, first, you want to start out with a hook or a web. I know some teachers, professors don't like to use the word hook. Some don't even like to say that you should start with a web. I disagree. You want to get the reader's attention because, just like in life, if you don't get their attention, they're not going to want to listen to anything else that you have to say. So, you do want to get their attention. Now, I'm not talking about being gimmicky, but there are some techniques that we're going to cover. Okay, so we're going to skip a few of these. Um, so let's look at some different ways in which you can get the reader's attention. First, you can always start off with some sort of surprising or interesting fact relevant to the topic. Now, make sure that your fact is something that is true and interesting, uh, something unique, something that they probably don't know. Okay, for example, if I were to write a paper about racism, I could start by saying that the Pentagon has twice as many bathrooms as are legally required by law. And I could go into the reason for that being that the building was built prior to the integration of people of different color in buildings. So they had segregated bathrooms. And then I could go in and explain if I wanted how they've turned most of those extra bathrooms into either extra bathrooms, just left them alone, and just said, now we have twice as many men's rooms or whatever, or janitorial closets. You could always start with a quote. Now, I'm going to caution you on this. This is one that it's done quite often. A lot of students like to start their papers off with quotes. If you're going to do this, it's okay, but you want to make sure that the quote that you use is one that is unique and different. And don't do one that has been done to death. I mean, if you're writing a paper about civil rights or something, do not start your paper with, I have a dream. Okay? Dr. King said a whole bunch of other things besides that. Find something else that is less common. Okay? An anecdote. This is a short story that you could start with that is relevant to the topic or relevant to the prompt. Okay? And these usually kind of paint a moral or paint a point that you're trying to illustrate with the preceding topic that you're going to discuss. And when I say short, I mean short, just a few sentences just to kind of get their attention. A common experience would be a one sentence tie in to relate the topic to the reader. So let's say, for example, that that the reader has a certain education or a certain background, whatever. Like, let's say I'm talking to a room full of parents. I might start with a one sentence attention getter that has to do with kids, something that only a parent would understand, right? If I'm doing something for students, I might start with a one sentence uh, attention getter that only students today would really understand. Historical relation. You ever heard the expression that history repeats itself? Well, it's pretty true. And the things that happen in the past have a way of kind of showing up again in present day. So, if you're talking about a particular topic now, you might refer back to something similar that happened in the past that you could tie into it. Okay, so for example, we had a recession not too long ago, and you could tie that into the Great Depression, or you could talk about um, cancel culture and McCarthyism, or things like that. Extended metaphors. An extended metaphor is just a regular metaphor that has been extended over a span of several sentences or paragraph. Okay. Um, this would be like comparing this thing to this other thing, but doing it in multiple different ways. For example, if you look at my example here, life is a highway that takes us through green pastures, vast deserts, and rocky mountains. Sometimes your car breaks down or you run out of gas, and sometimes you get lost. Friends are the road maps that help you get where you're going. So, do you see how I've compared life and a highway and used different pieces of life and different pieces of traveling down a highway to compare to one another in a multitude of different ways? That's an extended metaphor. You can start with a definition. However, let me caution you on this one. If you're going to start with a definition, first of all, do not just give me the old Webster's Dictionary says blah, 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 or according to Webster's Dictionary, blah, blah, blah. Okay? You only want to do this type of attention getter if what you're talking about is something where people contest the definition of it. Something ambiguous, like love or hate or um, fear or whatever like that. So you might say, like, um, you could define love your way. You could define hate your way and not just rely on the dictionary. What is your definition of that term? A false assumption would be basically that this one's really tricky. I wouldn't recommend this one unless you are a pretty experienced writer. Um, this is one where you basically take a common assumption that people have and then turn it on its head. Something like many people or people think that this particular politician is greedy. However, blah 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 blah, and then you show how that politician is not greedy. So this one really kind of makes you have to be aware of what is the general consensus of a particular line of thought, and then you turn that on its head by proving that they're wrong. Humor. You can, if you're funny, start with a joke. However, this is highly dependent on A, your sense of humor, and B, the topic. If the topic is serious in nature, do not start with a joke. If the topic is kind of whimsical or light, then sure, if you're funny, go for it. But again, for example, if I'm writing about the Holocaust, I should not start with a joke because that's not funny. Okay? So, some do nots. Don't ever start with a dictionary definition. That's so done to death and it's stupid and boring. Don't ever apologize. I can't tell you how many times I've seen students say, I'm sorry, this paper's not as good as it could be, blah, blah, blah. Don't do that. For all you know, I thought the paper was brilliant. Don't announce your intentions. This is another common one that a lot of first time writers or amateur writers use. They'll announce their intentions. They'll say something like, this essay will prove, or the following paper will show. Don't do that. I'll know what it's trying to prove because I'll actually read it. That's like walking up to somebody and saying, hey, I'm going to start talking to you now, and then start talking to them. You see how ridiculous and redundant that is? And then don't ramble, beat around the bush. Okay. So once you have your attention getter, now you got to craft your introductory paragraph. So the way you want to do that is you want to do these things right here. You want to identify your topic. You want to give your thesis, which we talked about in the previous video, and we'll talk about more. And then you want to suggest a direction that your paper will take. So how does that work? Well, it goes like this. There's a warm sunshine and a breezy beach where seagulls are flying and singing their morning songs. All of this is happening while students are sitting in their little prisons at their classrooms as their classrooms miraculously turn into the local cinema near the end of May. No academic work is being completed, the films hardly relate to the curriculum, and the students have checked out. Everyone in the building is busy counting down the minutes to summer vacation, even the teachers. And yet the students are still in school. So, do you see what I did there? I started with an attention getter. This is kind of a mix between an anecdote and humor. Okay? So, now I'm going to get into my topic. What am I talking about? It is argued that for student success there needs to be more time in learning, which is often why school years are extended into the summer months. However, the last week of school is notoriously not centered around meaningful activities. Amidst the arguments of valuing learning time and the reality of wasted time, proposals must be made, and so on and so forth. I can't really read with this box in the way, but you can read it for yourself. And the idea here is that this is my attention getter. This is my anecdote or humor, or funny anecdote, I should say. This is my topic. And then this is what I think about the topic in my thesis statement. This is what my paper is going to be about. Okay? I'm going to prove this point that I'm making. And I did all of that in just 3 to 5 sentences, which is really all you should take as far as time and space. Your intro should be fairly short. Get in, get out. No more than about 5 sentences, depending on the length of your overall paper. But for the papers in our class, no more than about 5 sentences for your intro. So again, let me just reemphasize, start with your hook, which is just a sentence or two. Give me some information about the topic. What do I need to know about the topic going forward? And then give me your position or outline that you're going to use, your thesis, in which you discuss that topic, your